Hey, how's it going, everyone? Before we get started into this next episode, I want to make sure, as you probably heard me mention before, that you've had a chance to listen to the other shows on the Extreme Performance Outdoor Network. If you haven't yet, you really should give them a chance. Just search Extreme, starting with an X, Performance Outdoor Network on any podcast hosting platform that you listen to. If you're already listening to this podcast through that, then good on you. We're really glad that you're supporting the network, and if you haven't, then you should really give the other shows a chance. By doing so, you're also supporting a network that continually puts its money where its mouth is and walks the walk in regards to trying to fight bills and other legislative measures that try and take away the rights of hunters and houndsmen across the country, and also a network that does a lot to help support its fellow man by trying to help others in need as well, like those that were just affected by those horrendous storms in Appalachia. And I'm really happy to be a part of a network that does these things. So give the other shows a listen if you haven't yet, and I really hope that you'll enjoy them. They're a lot of fun to listen to, and like I said, a lot of good information in them as well. So thanks for supporting, and we appreciate it. I also wanted to give a very big thank you to those of you who have signed up for the Extras membership via my Buy Me a Coffee account. I really hope that you've been enjoying the extra couple of episodes that I've been providing for you over the last couple months, and your continued support in that regard is very much appreciated. It's helping pay for some of those expenses that help keep the podcast going, and I'm very appreciative. And also to those of you who have bought some new merch through the merch store on my website as well, thank you also, and I really hope that you are enjoying your new shirts or hoodies or whatever you have bought. I really am glad that those of you seem to be enjoying them so far that have gotten them and have given me feedback. And for those of you that would like to give me some kind of input or feedback, feel free to do so at falconrychronicles@gmail.com. Let me know what you think of the new swag and what you think of some of the new episodes. I'd really appreciate hearing it. And now, on to this next episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast.
I was flying my Harris Hawk on just a field somewhere in like a suburban area that was just like a little like unworked field, and I'm flying my Harris Hawk, and there's a couple little kids that like came up to like join, or I guess see what I was doing. At that time, my Harris Hawk had just come up to the T-birch, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, is that real?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it is." And they're like, "Can we join?" First, I was like, "Do your parents know where you're at? Because we're just in a field."
Okay.
And they're like, yeah, we live like, and I'm like, "Okay, cool, sure, let's go." So we're going, and we get like a really nice like rabbit slip, and my bird grabs it, but the way he's grabbed, he's kind of like wrapped around this like little like small tree. So I go to like get it and like dispatch the rabbit, but the head comes off the rabbit. Yeah. So as you can imagine, so then it's just pouring blood. It's getting all over like me, and my bird is like, and so I'm doing a trade-off, but there's like blood everywhere, and it's fine. I toss him some food, he goes to it, and I put the rabbit in my bag, and so I turn around, and one of the kids is like, "Oh my gosh, that was amazing, I loved it, that was awesome, like, can we do it again?" The other kid, stark white.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast, and we are back in Texas again to finish out the last few episodes that were recorded at the THA meet earlier this year in Lubbock. And this episode brings you all Nichole Moore, and I had a chance to sit down with Nichole during the meet and talk to her about some of the different aspects of falconry that she's done, whether it's Fly Harris's hawks, Cooper's hawks, and things like that, and also talk to her some about her zoology career as well, and amongst other things. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right into this episode and get back to Texas again to finish out these last few episodes for you here that were recorded there earlier this year. So anyway, we are going to go ahead and jump right in here, and here we go. So, what part of Texas are you from again?
I live in Tyler, Texas, so East Texas, Piney Woods.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so how many hours away from here is that?
About 7.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, not a short jaunt then.
No, it's a nice trek. I used to live only 4 hours from here, and I used to come up all the time, but now 7 hours is kind of a lot. It's not a day trip anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, anymore. I mean, so I've done so much driving in the last like 3 years personally for work and other stuff. It's like anymore, I don't know, like 7 hours is kind of whatever at this point. Yeah, after you make like, I don't know, 19 to 20 something hour drives by yourself multiple times, it all becomes relative after that. I don't know. Do you have to commute a lot for work or anything like that, or do you?
Not too much. I do some different things where I go out to like our refuge. We have a refuge in Houston for our prairie chickens, so I go out there, but it's only about 4 hours away. And then we do conferences. So actually in March I'll be in Memphis at an AZA conference over there. But for the most part, the traveling I do would be like to the airport to pick up birds or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's the driving thing. It becomes, I don't know. I don't mind it so much anymore. I actually have gotten to the point where, especially if I'm driving by myself and making those long trips, whether it's for hawking or for work, it almost kind of becomes like, private self-reflection time. Kind of wind down, listen. I listen to a lot of other podcasts and stuff too. And anymore, it just kind of becomes, I don't know. It gives me that time to think. Sometimes almost too much, unfortunately. But yeah, no, I didn't know. I know you mentioned that you kind of do the conservation stuff for work and everything when we were talking before this. But so what all is involved with that?
So we do a wild release program with Atwater's Prairie Chickens. Mm-hmm. So there are a few other facilities who do that. There's Caldwell Zoo, which is where I'm at. Houston Zoo, Sutton Avian Research Center, which is in Oklahoma, and then Fossil Rim Wildlife Center, which is also in Texas. And we all have adult birds that we breed, and then we raise all the chicks, and then we select some for release, and then we release them into different refuges. We have one in Goliad, and then we have one I think it's at Eagle Pass, and then we fit like the hens with like GPS so they can monitor them and stuff, and then we just release them out into the wild. It's really awesome. I love it. I raise a lot of chicks. And we do a lot of releasing. The Atwater Prairie Chicken, which is the one that's native to the coastal plains of Texas, so it would be like around Houston, are critically endangered. So there was a point where there was only like 100 birds left, and in 1992 or 4, I can't remember which one, Fossil Rim partnered with Houston, and then we joined in, and Sutton joined in recently. To start working on a captive release program, and then we release almost like 400 birds ish a year. So
nice. And what's the ultimate goal with all of that? I mean, are they only really getting released on preserves that are kind of monitored and I don't know, kind of controlled somewhat, or is the ultimate goal to continue to have enough and continue to propagate enough to release into areas that eventually can be like hunted again, or what's kind of the ultimate goal with the whole program?
So right now they are on monitored areas that U.S. Fish and Wildlife monitor, and that's because the coastal plains are like one of the most endangered ecosystems in the United States. So right now we're even just trying to get those back. But definitely for me, like the goal would be able to see them just out and doing their thing. If you've ever heard of prairie chicken booming, it's kind of amazing. Just to hear they're like stomping and they have this big boom and their little cheek patches get huge and they just make these really cool noises. So I would love to be able to go out and like hear them. I know there's other prairie chickens, but the Atwaters one is native to Texas, so it's really cool to work on that one. But yeah, I would love that. That is the goal, to have where they're breeding successfully out in the wild and we're like keeping up numbers where we're not having to like release, 500 birds in order to have like numbers out in the population.
Sure. Yeah, like I said, I know that prairie chickens, at least in other parts of the country, kind of the numbers just keep dwindling for the most part. Obviously, because of the same reason why other population numbers keep dwindling, the habitat loss and everything else. But yeah, I mean they're kind of like having that unicorn reputation more and more, like the other parts of the country and stuff. So I wasn't really sure. I've never seen them in person. I've never heard the booming and stuff. I've never had a chance to really experience that in person. I've only ever heard about prairie chickens being talked about by people that have hunted them in the past or whatever, whenever their numbers were much higher and stuff like that. So
Yeah, they're really cool. They have such cool flight patterns. So they, like a grouse, they do some really cool flushing, and they're very fast. And then you can hear their wings as they're going. It's really cool. But you should definitely get somewhere where you can hear them booming, because it is truly an awesome sound. Even their feet, when they're stomping, are making some really cool noises. So super awesome. And during breeding season, we can hear them. Like as soon as you come in for work, you get out of your car and you can hear the chickens booming up at our like breeding area.
Nice. Yeah, no, I think that there's a lot of those programs and stuff. I really am happy that there's seems to be like more and more of those types of deals popping up, because yeah, I mean, what we don't want, especially in other parts of our country, is to end up like other areas of the world where things become just so either private or so, over cultivated or whatever the issue is, to the point where we're having to literally everywhere, start having to replant our own, prey populations and stuff. I hope it doesn't get to that point. I know some areas it just is inevitable probably, but
yeah, for sure. It's really cool to work on a program like that. And working in like the zoo field, we have other different programs with some like non-native species. So we do SSPs in the AZA community, and that's a species survival plan. So then we work on managing the population within the captive, all the captive zoos that are AZA, or in some that aren't. So I work on 2 different programs as well. So I do burrowing owls for the AZA community, and then I do red-crested turacos as well. So for that, I manage the whole AZA population. So I put together like breeding recs, and I find places for chicks, and I try to create new facilities so they can be breeding, so that way we can, have a really nice genetically diverse population. So we do that with a lot of species, especially species that are endangered, and then some that are threatened. So we do that, and there's a bunch of not just birds, a lot of other species of animals that are also on SSPs, and then people like lead them, and we have a team of people that are like vets and just different like experts on the bird or whatever animal it is that help us like, to really do that. So like with my Turaco, I have an issue where the chicks die really young, and we're trying to figure that out so that we can have a, stable population, because right now I have like 9 births a year, but then lose like 8 birds a year. So we're just barely steadily going up, and want to like really increase that. So what I do right now is, so all my facilities that have Turacos, I ask them to like report the deaths that they have, like what in their histopath and necropsy and all that information to me, so I can put it together. And so we can kind of figure out what it is. Since this Turaco is only native to like one specific area, we're wondering if maybe there is like something nutritionally that maybe we're not getting, because they would normally get it in that area. And that kind of helps us like figure things like that out. So then it helps us in like the captive populations to really do the absolute best we can for them. So it's a really cool thing to do.
Nice. Yeah. Well, and for people like me, I mean, there's still so many different species of birds and so many different things that I'll be more than happy to admit that I'm ignorant about. There's a lot of those types of birds that I literally know nothing about. So, I mean, it's cool that, you're able to do a lot of that stuff. I mean, there was a brief moment in time where I thought either zoology or marine biology, stuff like that, would be a path that I would want to go down. And then especially with like the marine biology stuff, I found out how much math was involved in everything, and I was just like, no, that's not gonna work for me. So, then I initially decided to go down the audio and musician path, which still didn't work for me. So, I mean, it's cool though that you're able to do that, and you're passionate about it, and it's something that, I'm sure that is a continual, challenge, something that you can keep trying to troubleshoot, work towards. In other words, it sounds like it's something that you wouldn't get bored with or anything like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely not. Even just like past the conservation part, like on the programs I work on specifically, I manage a population that has about 900 birds in it, just over 60 to 80 different species. And then I have a team of keepers, who do a lot of the husbandry. And then even within that, I have like daily things that I'm working towards. So one of the things right now that I'm like really working on is getting our lesser flamingos to lay fertile eggs. There's not a lot of facilities that are like really breeding lesser flamingos And I've been trying for like 4 years. I finally got my population to actually have a breeding season, which was really exciting. But now they're just laying me infertile eggs. So now we're trying to work that out. But so I'm constantly having to watch them and record behavior and then just see how I can make changes. So then I'm looking at the wild population to see if maybe my barn's not warm enough, or I don't have enough humidity, or maybe I have too much humidity, because when they would normally be breeding, it's like 90 degrees, and then but my barn's like 85. I'm like, maybe that 5 degrees makes a big difference. And then I tried that, and so it's really cool that I'm always like troubleshooting, and especially with like incubation, because it's like such a specific science, but also there's so many variables that like make a difference. Like just like humidity on egg weight makes such a big difference. So then you're having to adjust a lot of stuff and constantly like make sure you're there. That way you can be really successful with like hatching eggs, which I'm sure anyone who's doing propagation understands that it can definitely be a challenge, especially if you're artificially incubating versus like parent incubating. So
yeah, I mean, it seems like the natural way would be the easiest way, but just let the natural course of things just kind of, take over or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I've tried doing, I don't know, like a long time ago, whenever I had like chameleons and stuff, I tried actually hatching out some eggs and stuff. It didn't work very well. So yeah, I mean, I even me in just a super ultra limited scope, yeah, I can understand what, just the challenge that goes into that. And I even am just have the microscopic amount of knowledge when it comes to all that kind of stuff. But I mean, out of curiosity, so for someone that's looking to have a career path that's similar to yours, I mean, how much like work went into basically working your way into the position that you're in now? I mean, what went into all that?
So a lot of unpaid work, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
So volunteering and interning. Fortunately in Texas, most internships are paid, even if it's just by stipend. So that's great. But so I went to college. I knew I wanted to work with animals. And then afterwards I was like, okay, where do I start? So I found a facility that was close to me, and I started volunteering there and did some education work with like some tours. And then I was like, okay, let's get an internship. So then I applied to internships, did that. I interned. And then after my internship, I started applying to full-time jobs. And once I finally got one of those, I've been at Caldwell Zoo now for 5 years. I started as a keeper. I had the opportunity to move up into the supervisor role for the bird department when our supervisor left. I took that. I was really excited about it. And now I've been doing that, and I love it. And I plan to continue there until I can eventually take the curator position once my curator retires. But yeah, so definitely as much volunteering as you can. And interning is so great. Even before I was even out of high school, I was already like, I would volunteer at this little cat sanctuary that we had pretty close to where I lived. Occasionally I would go in and talk or do things like that. Just that little stuff that builds a resume really makes a difference, because the zoo field, there's a lot of people who really want to work with animals, but there are not a lot of jobs. So like for my facility, I have 7 bird keepers total, and that's it. So that's only 7 spots if you want to work with birds in like my zoo. So, and that changes depending on where you're at. But the spots are so limited for how many people just want to work with animals. And so yeah, definitely the more like volunteering or interning is better because you can get paid for it. But that you can do to get experience really makes a difference, because that's what we look for. Even for like entry level, honestly, we look for people who are intern. I've never hired anyone that hasn't interned before, just because then.
What foundation do they have?
So the keeper role has so much responsibility on it, because you have so many animals under your care that not even having like an idea of what zookeeping is, you're kind of like, would they? And then a lot of people don't know what goes into like the zoo world. They think, I can just kind of like play with animals all day. No. Yeah. Absolutely not. The bulk of my day is honestly like heavy lifting and, just like husbandry. And then, I'm repairing perching all the time. I have so many birds. And then like my parrots are like, I'll just chew up every perch that's ever been. And then we'll replace them constantly. And then obviously like the training part is so much fun, so people really want to do that. But even like that can be like, you know, a lot. Like when you're doing like 10 different birds, you know, it can be really like taxing. So then some people, like even interning, will come in and be like, oh yeah, this is exactly what I want to do. And then by the end, I'm like, you know, like, how was it? Like, did you love it? And they're like, no, I will go into research. And I'm like, that's fair. But then some are like, yes, I love it. This is exactly what I want to do. And I'm like, I love that for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many misconceptions and so many different career fields, I think, of what truly goes on. And it doesn't matter if it's something like your field where everybody thinks, oh, yay, get to just, yeah, like you said, kind of just dilly-dally with animals all the day, whatever. And then, you know, but, you know, the reality is you're, you know, changing bedding, scooping crap and whatever and all this other stuff most of the time. And it's just, and it's kind of like, you know, even in fields like, you know, or even just being like a touring musician, you know, it's just, there's all those memes floating around. It's like what people think goes on backstage and what really goes on backstage. And it's just, you know, one picture is, you know, wild party and the other picture is just some dudes playing on their cell phones, sitting on the couch,
Right,
you know,
absolutely.
It's the whole misconception. And that's why I was kind of curious because I know, like I said, when I was younger, I thought it was something that sounded appealing, interesting or whatever. But the more research I did, especially from like the marine biology standpoint on it, I was just like, man, there's just so much other stuff that I know I'm not going to like.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a lot that I'm kind of like, oh, this is not my favorite. But then I get to do the like training. I love, obviously I love training as a falconer. Like I love doing it. So then getting to train other birds also, like I just recently trained a whole flock of cranes. So that was my first time to train an entire flock of birds at the same time, rather than just a singular bird. So that was so cool to do in my like career, to just recall train them. So I got them trained to do a recall. So the whole flock, when you whistle, we put them out on an Africa yard with a mixed species. If you open the gate and whistle, all of them come in. And our yard is huge, and they just walk on in, and they come back into their holding. So it made it was something to make our second shift keepers who bring them in at nighttime their lives easier. Instead of having to go out and push them in, now they just whistle and they come right in. So it's so cool. And then even like flight training, but with other species is like really cool. I do a lot of training with vultures, so they're probably one of my favorite, apart from like Harris hawks, because they're just so fun. Just to train, because they're just so intelligent, and they can do some really cool things. Like we have a vulture that we train to do a recycle behavior. So you can just give her like a plastic cup and she's going to go put it in a bin. So it's really cool that we can like we can give like a guest like a bottle or something, and she's going to take it and then go put it in little like bin that we have like a recycle on it. And that's just like something really cool, and it lets us like engage with like guests. And then we can really give a message about conservation for raptors. So we can talk about like not using poison and different things like that, or like lead and stuff like that. So it gives us a really cool platform for that. Plus, it's so cool to get to train at work as well as at home. I love it. Yeah,
I'm sure. I mean, and so I mean, along this path, then, about how old were you then when you kind of discovered that, you know, falconry was a thing, and working and hunting with birds of prey was the thing along this like career path of yours?
Yeah, so I actually saw a gentleman fly a golden eagle to a lure when I was in like 4th grade, and I was like, well, I'm going to do that. 100%. I'm going to do that. But I didn't actually get into falconry until I was a freshman in college. I was actually working at a pet store, and a falconer came in and was buying a gerbil to go trapping, and he was wearing a shirt. At the time, I had really only known one other falconer, and he was one of my best friends, and he was an apprentice, and I was like, okay, I'll just wait until you can sponsor me. And I was pretty shy, so I didn't like want to go out and meet people, so I was like, oh. But this guy came in to go trapping, and I saw a shirt, and I was like, oh, are you a falconer? He was like, yeah. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. I really want to get into it. And we got to talking, and he was telling me what he was doing, and I was like, that's amazing. And then, sure enough, he ended up sponsoring me. Like, right after that, we talked more, and he ended up sponsoring me, so that was great. So I didn't have to wait another, like, 5 years or whatever. So that was awesome. So then that was, like, back in 2013. And yeah, and then after that, I just kind of went with it. I was so excited to like go, and then just been doing it ever since.
Nice. And so basically, I mean, did you kind of start on a path that's similar to most falconers that you start off with like a red tail and, just work from there kind of thing? Is that pretty much what you did, or did you start with something different?
I would like to tell you yes, that I definitely started with a red tail, and I 100%, but no. I actually started with a kestrel, which was awesome. I loved it. At the time that I started, I was just barely getting into like also my career as well, where I was like volunteering at places and doing that. So I was working with hoofstock, so I was already super like invested in like being around the animals. So I was like, okay. So I was super meticulous, so it worked out really well. And then I had such a great time flying the micro, so I was like, you know what I'll fly next? Because it's Texas, a Cooper's Hawk. Because why not? Right? So my second bird was a Cooper's Hawk. I loved it. Actually, where I lived before in Stephenville, we had a nice, decent population of quail. So I actually had a great time with it. It was, I like to say, like, one of the easier birds to train. But as I was talking with like Matt, he has the same opinion. It's a harder bird to maintain, like in nice condition and everything, because of just how much they want to go. So it wasn't at that time a bird that fit my lifestyle. So I ended up releasing it and getting a Harris hawk. But we had a really great time at first. But I was really, really like trying to move my career forward and stuff too. So I needed something with a little less need to go out 5 times a day. Yeah. And be constantly moving. But while I had it, it was great. I caught some quail with it. We had a lot of starlings that we would catch, and had a great time with her. I didn't have the same experience some people have where they think they're like really mean or whatever. I thought she was great. Once I manned her down, she was awesome. And as long as I kept her going, she was great. When I wasn't hunting, she was picking at her equipment all the time, and I even like would like free loft her to my muse. She would fly around and just like, oh, I guess I'll stand on the wall, or I'll stand on a perch, or I'll like pick up my jesses and my anklets and everything like that. And I was like, oh, okay, this isn't going to work. And I would try to get out every single day, but I was in school, and I was also, trying to like get my career going. So I was like, that's not going to work. Yeah. So I ended up releasing it, and then I got a Harris hawk, and I flew the same Harris hawk for a long time. And now I've flown some red tails and stuff like that, but I'm back on a Harris hawk. But yeah, so a little less traditional, like going from kestrel to Cooper's hawk, and then to like the Budios and like Parabudios. But yeah, it's fine. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
I mean, if you had someone there that was literally telling you what to do, like even more micromanaging what you were doing, or someone that was willing to do that, all the power to you. Because I mean, so my personal views on a lot of those things have changed over the years too. And not that my opinion matters whatsoever, and nor really should it to anybody else for the most part. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we all have in falconry our opinions, and our, falconers and their opinions. You can't say it enough, it is what it is. But, I mean, thing is, as you know, and as anybody that's tried to fly micros knows, I mean, the weight management aspect of it is just so crucial to really be able to have that understood, spot on, and everything else. And I know for me, thinking back to my first couple of seasons, it took me a good full season to really understand the concept of what weight management really is. And the number doesn't always equate to results, and so on and so forth, and all these different things. There's no way in hell for me that I would have been able to wrap my head around that when it come to something that mattered tenths of grams versus,
for sure,
even, you know what I mean? So, but if someone is there and able to really walk you through that and explain step by step what all that really translates to, means whatever, hey, I mean, if it's all about the guidance thing for me. If you've got it, great. I mean, if not, then it's probably not something that I know I sure as hell wouldn't recommend it. I mean, is that what your thoughts are also?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of have, for a long time, had this stance where I would never take an apprentice because I didn't think I'd have the time to do it.
Yeah.
I have recently decided I would take an apprentice and I already decided that no, they're going to be flying like a red tail or a Harris hawk, because I was really fortunate to have a nice community of people who were like willing to help me. There's a lot of really awesome falconers here in Texas that were willing to help me when I was like first starting out, which was awesome. And then I had a sponsor who was flying a coops at the time, so that was really nice. But yeah, I for sure do not recommend. I think like if you have like, just like you said, the guidance, like they're great birds, they're awesome, but they're not as forgiving as like a red tail. Like if you accidentally feed, 5 grams less than you should have or whatever, it doesn't even matter. But if you do that on a kestrel, like that really makes a difference. Or you're dropping weight and you didn't quite calculate your weight loss correctly, that makes a huge difference on a kestrel versus a red tail. I see that like a lot at work. I have keepers that I'm training to do weight management as well, and we're working on things like passerines who are weighing like 30 grams. And it makes a big difference when we're training like a barbet who weighs like nothing, and you're like, okay, we have to be so very particular about food to not drop too much weight, because it's not the same weight management exactly, since we're not flying like a barbet on game, because it's a passerine.
Sure. Yeah.
But we're still doing scale training, recall, and like hand, so we're still doing training, so they still have to be motivated to actually do it. But that sort of weight management is so different than like a red tail, where like my newer trainers, I put them with our red tail and I'm like, it's fine, and then I'll ask them like, what do you think? Because then it's okay if they're a little wrong, I can kind of help them out. But on our smaller birds, I'm like, oh, we got to make sure you're good and ready to go before I'm like, yeah, you can make the weight management decisions on some of these birds.
Sure. Yeah. And it's, 5 to 10 grams, depending on the circumstances, can be life and death when it comes to something like a kestrel. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to expect someone with next to no knowledge base to be able to understand and do successfully. And hats off to you for taking, I guess, the path less traveled, so to speak, on that. Hey, if it worked out, great. And I've had this similar conversation, in previous podcasts with other people, even stuff like, even species like Merlins and stuff. There's people that are of the opinion, hey, if you've got an experienced Merlin flyer and they're wanting to sponsor someone, and, certain species are just so different from other species that it's like, it's its own thing. It'd be weird to have that as a first bird, but if you've got someone that's really experienced with it and willing to teach someone and really hold their hand the whole time, okay, but otherwise,
yeah, I absolutely agree.
It's, you're kind of potentially setting yourself up for some big failure otherwise.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, having done the like road less traveled, I would definitely not recommend a coops for an apprentice.
There's no way in hell.
No, I would not recommend. Like I said, I had a great time with it. But yeah, would not do that again. Yeah. If I was apprenticing again, I probably would be like, okay, the kestrel, yeah, that one was good, but the coops was, even though we had a good time, I think that it definitely takes the right person and like the right guidance around you to really get that going for an apprentice, for someone who has like really only one bird experience. So yeah, it's a lot. And I think that there's something to be said for the guys that are like the really super experienced accipiter, flyers and stuff, especially, that say that, ironically enough, the people that usually end up being successful for the first time or most successful with those types of birds are the guys that are old or retired, literally have every single day to dedicate most of their time to doing that and stuff, end up being the most successful. It's a very valid rationale and line of thinking, because it makes sense, because those birds, that's all they want to do. And if you don't really understand that that's what their motivation is, period, and that's all they think about and want to do, then it can be hard to keep a bird like that content. Yeah, absolutely. I did a brief portion of my like career time doing abatement, and that was when I went back to flying Cooper's Hawks and was the most successful, when I was like only either doing abatement or flying birds. And that was it. And that was when I was the most like successful flying them, because I was doing it all the time. Because what else was I going to do?
Yeah.
Sit in my house. So like it was fine. I was fine with it. I was like constantly, and I had such good access to bird game at that time, because I lived, and there was literally just a field right behind my house that had birds in it. And I would just go out there, and literally would just take a couple minutes, and we would have like slips. So like all the time we were going. That was when I was the most successful. So yeah, definitely like someone who has the time to like sit there and be like, yeah, I'm gonna fly every day all the time on this coops, and it's gonna have a great time with it.
Yeah, and even especially from an imprint standpoint too. Like that's what I've heard from multiple guys also. And I mean it's same deal with the passage too, but even more so sometimes with an imprint also is what I've heard. I mean, I've tried a couple of coops unsuccessfully, didn't really get anywhere with them, and now that I'm several years later, it's easy to understand why. You know, I mean, I know what I was doing wrong.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I know what I was doing wrong.
I've only ever flown passage coops. I kind of have a thing where I like to be able to release the birds.
Yeah.
In case I either don't have time or like don't want to fly that bird anymore. Maybe it's very loud and I don't want that. I want to be able to release them, so I don't really do a lot of imprinting. I do at work. We do a little bit. We have some burrowing owls that we're going to imprint for shows, just because owls, honestly, they do the best either imprinted or like soft imprinted, just because they just don't do super well if they're like rehab. There's kind of a push to not have rehab owls, especially rehab adult owls, in like programs and stuff, because they just don't do well in those sort of settings. They get what's called like learned helplessness, where they're just like, okay, I guess this is my life. Where they're like, but you can tell based on how they're like interacting with you that really isn't a situation that they want to be in.
It's like Al Stockholm syndrome.
Basically, yes. Yes. So there's a really big push to kind of not have adult rehab owls as program animals, as like exhibit animals or whatever. Like that's different, but like as actual program animals. And I can definitely see it, because I have one in my collection who is a like adult rehab, and he would be absolutely thrilled if I never looked at him again. 100%. And then I have a eagle owl that isn't like that, who is parent reared, but then, you know, taken as a juvenile and trained for shows and stuff, who is so much different, crazy different on how, like on just like that behavior. So yeah. I mean, I've always heard that about owls too. It's best if you either imprint them, get them super young, and go that route, because they have. I've always heard that their trust issues are significantly worse. When it comes to. Would definitely agree with that. Plus, the type of training that you have to do with an owl is so much different than a hawk, because of the crop situation. So they're putting away food pretty much immediately, and you're just like, okay, you're already full. I fed like this much, and you're already like done. So you have to make such smart decisions, because your window is so short. And I think, just speculating here, I think that's like one of the issues that people have when they try to use them for falconry, is that they're not using the window to the best of their abilities. Because, for me, like my eagle owl, my window is so, even though she eats like, a lot in our sessions, she's huge, but our window is still very short. So when I was crate training her, I knew I had like 5 good reps. And then after that, we're done. So you have to know to make those steps forward so much quicker. So if you're not really confident in your skills, then you're doing the same steps over again. Then they're not learning anything. So then you're just stuck in the same spot. And I think that might, just speculating, like I said, I think that might be some of the issues that people have, when they try them for falconry, is that they're not using their time, or they're not confident that, okay, yeah, they like came over to me twice. It's time to move on. We should not keep doing that. We need to keep going. We like to do like, if we have a couple steps forward, we got to go. And if we have a step back, we can move back a little bit. But if we are, doing the same rep over and over again, we're just like making zero progress, especially with the species like that, where your window is so small with just like how much time you have. And then you have to wait till the next time you want to do it. So,
yeah. Once again, falconers and their theories. It is.
It's true.
It is what it is. I mean, there's a few guys that I know that have been successful with with owls and great horns and stuff like that. And I think one or two of them especially would be the first to tell you that they don't know if their recipe would work again. A second time, and I use the word recipe. I really shouldn't use the word recipe. Their method, I guess, that they used that one successful time. It's like nobody seems to ever really truly be in a rush to try and try the method a second time again after the
honestly
after the
I get
first
it
one with an owl. But and as you know, and for those that aren't actively in the falconry community, but thinking about being in that, joining this community, that are listening to this, it's an inside joke in the falconry community. It really is. It's a running, there's not very many people that use owls in falconry, and for usually a good reason. But anyway, moving on from that, I guess. I'm going to have to do a little bit of owl homework, over the next few months, especially too. I know my wife loves owls, and, it's kind of one of those things where it's like whenever your significant other that normally hates, what you do and hates birds of prey, likes a type of bird of prey. And it's kind of like, okay, well, I'll make a concession, whatever. I mean, I've always thought screech owls were pretty cool. I think we're going to get a captive bred screech owl this year and stuff too. And
that's fun. They are so cute.
Yeah. And, work with them. I mean, I'd love to have a burrowing owl myself too. I think those things are really neat also. But,
I work with some burrowing owls, and I really enjoy them. Of the species, I've worked with quite a few species of owls at this point in my career. Probably my favorite would be like the Eurasian eagle owl. I've worked with milky eagle owls as well. And then, the Eurasian is definitely my favorite. They're really cool, fun to train. They're also huge.
Yeah.
They have a lot of personality. The one I train at work, she's really tactile. I got her voluntarily injection trained, so I can just give her West Nile injection she's not even restrained. She's just sitting on a perch, and I can go in and give her injection. Yes, she's really tactile. It took a lot of work to get there, but and then I have a barn owl that I work with too, but those small owls, the burrowing owls, are a ton of fun.
Yeah.
It's like a silly little micro falconry that you can do there. It's fun. Mine catch like little grasshoppers and stuff that get into our mew, or any bug that gets in there, and we'll come in to go do training, and we're like, what are you, why are you so heavy? What happened? And then we'll just see like little pieces of like grasshopper in their cast, and we're like, oh
yeah,
okay.
There's your answer. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, it's one of those things where it's like you try and like I said, it's somewhat selfish too, because I think they're very neat. But like I said, it's whenever you try and subtly plant seeds here and there to try and generate interest in incorporating members of your family that otherwise don't give two craps about anything that you do with falconry and stuff, and try and slowly get them to come around to the dark side a little bit, so to speak, So I will say there's selfish motivation on a couple of different angles of that, but it's whatever. I mean,
you start with that, and then you get her a kestrel.
Yeah,
there we go.
I mean, I've flown multiple kestrels, and there's been one in particular that she liked. And I've mentioned this before. The one bird that I've had that she absolutely just really liked, I mean, was the imprint Tiercel prairie falcon that I had at one point. She loved that bird, and I think it was just because he was an imprint and actually wanted to be somewhat social and kind of always reacted when she came around and stuff. Like, but yeah, no, it's one of those things where it's like you just. And you try and work it in to fit other things in, and everything else. It's just for those that are married falconers that are married and have significant others that don't care for what they do. They'll understand. They listen, But anyway, but I mean, of all the birds that you've flown and everything, then I mean, what's the type that you've enjoyed the most?
Honestly, a good cast of Harris hawks.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. It's a great time. I love being able to go out with my friends and just put my birds up at the same time. I love that. at this point now, I do a lot of squirrel hawking, so I like a good red tail too. But I just can't get away from those Harris hawks. They're just so much fun, and they just have so much personality. And I really like I said, I really like flying a good cast. When I come out here and you get to chase like cottontail and jackrabbits with a cast of Harris hawks, it's so much fun.
Yeah. I mean, I have a continued love-hate relationship with Harris's. Like a lot of my best memories and a lot of my not so fond memories have been with Harris's, and it is what it is. I mean, I love them. I think they're great birds. Don't get me wrong, but now, especially with me enjoying running dogs, it's hit or miss sometimes, with that aspect of things too. And I mean, do you run dogs with your birds?
No, not yet. Actually, I had this thought. I was like, well, I just don't want to have to focus on yet another thing in the field. I'm just trying to get slips for my bird. But then I got with my friends who have dogs, and I'm like, well, it seems a lot easier to get those rabbits moving than it is when I'm just running around, trying to find them. I'm like, maybe I should get a dog. So now I'm thinking, oh, I guess I want to get a dog.
Yeah. It's, and that's a whole other, rabbit hole in and of itself that you can go down and had plenty of those conversations too, privately and here on the podcast as well with about that. That's a whole other thing that you can just, research for millions of years, it seems like, and just, almost overthink what the best choice for a breed is with that too. But yeah, no, I mean, I enjoy my dachshunds. I'm glad that I made the decision to do that. And it's nice not necessarily having to work your ass off constantly. And especially if it's just you and you're not hunting with anybody else, it's miserable, especially when you're rabbit hawking.
Oh yeah, it definitely. There have been times especially when I used to live in Central Texas and I would be rabbit hawking primarily, that I would spending all day just running around a field by myself, and I get home and I'm like, wow, I'm really tired. And you get one rabbit. I'm like, whew, I'm really tired. And then I come out and I have a bunch of people with me, and I go out in another field and we're walking down a line, and I slips over and over again. I'm like, okay. So yeah, and then definitely going out with one of my other friends who has dogs, I'm like, oh, that was pretty nice. Yeah. That was pretty nice to have the dog just run in under there and push all the rabbits out. I'm like, oh, last time I did that, I was standing on top of the stick pile, putting my brush stick in there, trying to poke them out of there. Yeah. And they're just running in there and knocking them out of there. I guess there's something nice to that.
There is, and it's also nice to not only have something else in the field with you that enjoys beating for you, and that's just, it's giving them this sense of fulfillment to the point where it's like, yeah, there's another thing that's helped me, and they're also not bitching about it too. It's like they don't care if you are in the field for hours or whatever and kick up however many and this, that, and the other, and you don't have to listen to anybody give you any mouth anything the whole time either. So there's a benefit to that too. So, and I mean, as far as the type of breed though that you think, I mean, what do you think you would lean towards if you were to get one?
Well, I'm really on this dachshund train right now, having watched them work the field so much. I really like some of the sighthounds that can run the jacks and stuff. Unfortunately, would have to just travel a lot to do that. And at this point in my life and career, that's just not super feasible. So maybe one day. So probably a dachshund, just because I've been watching them in the field, and it's been really cool watching them go. And those are the only two that I've had the experience so far to go out in the field with. Usually, that's what people are running under Harris hawks. And if I'm out with somebody, usually I'm out with my Harris hawks and their Harris hawks. So yeah, that's all I've really gone out with. But I like the little jag terriers. I've seen them chasing the squirrels up the trees and stuff. And since I squirrel hawk, I'm like, maybe that. Yeah. But,
yeah. I mean, it's there's gives and takes with any choice. But, having 3 dachshunds now myself, it's and this ongoing dachshund series, you'll hear a recurring theme if you listen to them. You'll find out real quick what the cons are to having a dachshund. But I mean, as far as the versatility of being able to get into that tight cover, and then also the fact that they, if you train them and get them going on squirrel, they will tree also. I mean, which is nice sometimes too. But I mean, it's not what they're known for, obviously. But they will do it. Yags are cool. I run with a Yag quite a bit that my buddy has, and he also has a Decker, and so I mean, I've gotten a chance to see the pros and cons with a few different breeds on a regular basis and stuff. And I still chose dachshunds, if that tells you anything.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, once again, not that my opinion should necessarily matter, but yeah, I mean, there's just a certain, I don't know, mindset about that breed that I just really enjoy personally. And I think most people that have dachshunds will tell you the same thing. But yeah, no, I mean, you'll just have to maybe borrow a couple and put them in front of your birds for a little bit and just make sure that your birds are,
I think that would end up with me getting a new dog.
Probably. But, you just make sure that they're, the key that I think that most people tell you with that too is this, that as long as the Harrises see that dog working and producing for them, they may not like him up until then, but once they see it, then they'll tolerate him pretty good. But anyway, I mean, is there anything that you would like to fly yet that you haven't?
I used to really want to try a long wing.
Not so much anymore.
I'm not in the area for one. I do not have the ducks I have are like ditch ducks, which are great,
right,
for other things.
That's
not
my
great
situation
for
too.
Long wings. And I love going out. It's so cool for like 10 minutes and then it's over. But then when I'm out like Derek hawking, I'm out for like 2, 3, 4 hours and we're just going the whole time. So I feel so much more involved. And I really, really enjoy that. I really like being up close and personal with them, like all the time. I love running down my bird with the cottontail or the jack. Like, it's so much fun. But yeah, so I really wanted to do that. Maybe one day when I can travel a lot more, I'd really like to try that. Right now, I'm really happy with the flying the Derek hawking.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's something to be said too. And it sounds like that you haven't fallen into the trap that, discussed many times with people, that early on you just have this thing where you just want to try everything. It sounds like that. I mean, it sounds like you were kind of almost had a built-in career and everything else that kind of kept you from being able to do that, though. So your career and everything else that you were doing in life seems like it might have saved you from that trap that you can fall into a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Just knowing that like I can't do all the like traveling to go do those things, at least right now. Like eventually, yes, but right now, like I'm really focused on like getting my career where I want it to be, and I'm really focused on like my birds and stuff that I'm doing for work, especially my conservation stuff, that it doesn't give me as much time to like travel and stuff. So I know that I can't really take a bird that I don't have game for, like where I live, which right now is like squirrels, and then there's like some like swamp rabbits and like birds and stuff like that. So I know that's what I can do and that's what I will have. So yeah, definitely I would agree with that. Like the career I had, I knew that, I can only do so much. So I need to like focus on what I can do. So I haven't really like tried to fly things that I don't have like game for, just because I can't do a lot of traveling. I used to do more when I did abatement, and then I didn't care. That's why I flew a lot of like accipiters, and I would travel all the time to fly my Harris hawks, like especially up around the Panhandle. I would just make a day trip. It's like 4 hours there, 4 hours back, 8-hour round trip. That's fine. Like I'll just go and do it, and I would hawk a lot and then go home. But now I'm like, I just can't do that. Like there's no way. I have 2 days off and I need to make the most of that. And then after work, you only have like 2 hours of light. So I'm like, okay, I can get a squirrel slip in 2 hours. So that's what we're going to do. So
sure. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, as far as, and before we transition to the next thing, and I am curious though, as far as like going back to the passage coops, especially, what did you find as far as your method and the ones that you flew? I mean, what worked best for you other than, I mean, was there anything else that you did other than just making sure that you flew them as much as possible, as often as possible through the week and stuff? Other than that, I mean, what other thing that you noticed worked really well with them?
So I've flown 5 coops at this point, all passage, 4 female and 1 male. What I did, and I'm sure other people do this, but what I did, if I couldn't find game, like I brought like sparrows and starlings that I caught, and I like, if I couldn't find any game like the whole day, like, which didn't happen very often, like I'm giving them like game if I have to, because I like constantly wanted to do stuff, especially like in the initial. I would say like the best thing that worked for me is I got that bird out as quick as I could. Like if I could get that training down like as fast as I could, like I got that bird out and going, because I feel like the longer you have them where they're just like like tethered to your glove or like in the mew and you're just working them, like the longer it takes, like the crazier they get. Because then they're just like, woo. Because like the first one I flew, it took me like 2 weeks to get it going. And then after that, I was like, I gotta get this down, because in that time they're like jumping around and she had broken a couple tail feathers. And I'm like, okay, I can't do that. So after that, I was like, I have like a week. This is my deadline. I have to get them out. And I know, that has to change, depending on the bird, but I tried to like get this bird going as quick as I can. So I would man it often, but not too much, because I feel like they would just stare at me and be like, I do not wish to be around you. So sometimes I would actually just perch them out in my like living room when I was just sitting, so they could just like sit and like watch, but not necessarily have to be like attached to me and like wanting to like bait or anything like that. So I would do some manning like that. And I feel like that worked really well, but definitely like I was like, getting them out, killing like as soon as I could. Like even on the creons, like I'd be like, okay, let's see if we can't like get you something to do. And then my like first free flight is hunting. Like we're hunting, and I'm okay, hope for the best, let's go, we're going now. Because I feel like we have to get those birds like going and getting them on game as quick as possible, and that seemed to work the best for me, especially as I had flown more. Like once I got to like the third and fourth, then I'm like, okay, I'm out, we're going. And then we did great, and then the bird's not bored or sitting around waiting on me to get done training, because I feel like they train faster than what we are doing them, like training them. Like I feel like they can outpace us, so we have to keep up with them because they're like going. Because I feel like they're pretty easy to train for that, to get them going. But so I try to like be ready to like make moves forward and just go and go and go and train as quick as I can with them, and like any like opportunity I can get to like get them like doing more, I would try to do that. So I feel like that really worked for me, like realizing like, yeah, they're gonna need to be trained really fast, and I'm gonna need to work at their pace, and it needs to be a quick pace.
The guys that have had long-term success flying them, I've heard similar things as well. So yeah, no, I mean, I maybe at some point again when I feel like I can just completely afford to just burn a tag and, and afford to have a bird fly off or whatever, maybe I'll try one again or something. I don't know. Someday. There's still a few things I want to do before then.
One will just fall in your lap, because that's how I got all of mine. Stuck in pigeon coops. Yeah. Stuck in a building, and they're like, come get it. And I'm like, I guess I'm flying a coops now. Yeah. But I've never like actively like went out and tried to trap one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, one of the ones that I tried was kind of similar situation too. Yeah, this one was in my parents' pigeon or my chicken coop, and here you go. Okay, whatever. And yeah, I mean, it just ended up getting released later. So, but yeah, it is what it is. Like I said, someday, and because of what I've heard is kind of a common denominator type of thing from yourself and so many people that's been successful with them. I want to make sure that I can literally get out every single day with one before I try one again. I'm not going to waste my time otherwise beforehand.
Yeah, so. I definitely think that you like have to get out, even if it's just like 10 minutes and you can get something under that bird. Like you have to get them going, because I feel like they just get so bored. Just watching those, just how they're like, it looks how they're thinking, and it just looks like they're like, what can I do? What can I do?
Yeah,
what can I do?
Like they're wired just to want to continually try and kill stuff. I mean, that's just them. Yeah, for sure. Well, and before we get your favorite hunting story or two and stuff like that, let's I am curious though, what's the least favorite bird or the hardest bird that you've worked with and tried to train?
That's a hard one. I think like for me, man, that's a hard one. I've enjoyed everything I've worked with so far. You stumped me. I've enjoyed all the birds I work with so far. I've had individuals that have been like, want to pull your hair out. Probably like I had one male red tail, which is like, what? Who like could not get going. He just like would not. All he wanted to do was like bait away, and I'd be like, what am I doing wrong? And I'd already been a general for a while at that time. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? The guy just like did not wish to participate. And I was like, well, why won't you even jump to me? We're like a week in. He's like, I'm not even going to hop to you. And I'm like, this ain't gonna work for me.
Yep.
There's too many red tails.
Life's too short.
I like cut him loose, but that's like hair pulling. You're like, what the heck is going on? And ended up trapping a different bird and fine for the rest of the season. But there's not been like a type of bird that I haven't liked flying so far. Everyone that I've flown, I've like enjoyed for something or another, depending on like what I'm doing or where I'm at in life. I haven't really like not liked a species yet. So
yeah, that's good for you, I guess. I mean, being as you've trained so many different species just with your career and in falconry and stuff too, I figured there would be, I mean, yeah, it's probably a good thing that there's not one that sticks out in your mind particularly then, but since it's what you do for a living. But no, I mean, that's cool. Like I said, I'm especially if owls and other species are involved like that kind of have reps, and things. I mean, no, maybe you're just good at what you do. I don't know. There's that also, I guess.
I mean, they pay me for it, so I guess so. Just kidding.
There is that too. Well, yeah. Okay, well, cool. No, like I said, yeah, there's always at least one falconry bird one bird that we try to incorporate into falconry. It seems like that we experience it just, we know this isn't going to work, or
right.
If it is going to work, it's just going to be not worth the time. So yeah, you probably made the right call there. But so yeah, as far as particular hunting experience story, anything that sticks out in your mind, there's always usually one or two that stick out in people's mind that's memorable or impressionable. Go ahead and share.
Cool. I have the best. It's the funniest story. It actually happened here in Lubbock. Man, this had to have been like 7 or 8 years ago. I was flying my Harris Hawk on just a field somewhere in like a suburban area that was just like a little like unworked field, and I'm flying my Harris Hawk, and there's a couple little kids that like came up to like join, or I guess see what I was doing. At that time, my Harris Hawk had just come up to the T-birch, and they were like, oh my gosh, is that real? And I'm like, yeah, it is. And they're like, can we join? And first I was like, do your parents know where you're at? Because we're just in a field.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we live like, and I'm like, okay, cool, sure, let's go. So we're going, and we get like a really nice like rabbit slip, and my bird grabs it, but the way he's grabbed, he's kind of like wrapped around this like little like small tree. So I go to like get it and like dispatch the rabbit, but the head comes off the rabbit. Yeah. So as you can imagine, so then it's just pouring blood. It's getting all over like me, and my bird is like, and so I'm doing a trade-off, but there's like blood everywhere, and it's fine. I toss him some food, he goes to it, and I put the rabbit in my bag, and so I turn around, and one of the kids is like, oh my gosh, that was amazing, I loved it, that was awesome, like, can we do it again? The other kid, stark white. He looked at me and he was like, I didn't know it would bleed so much. And I was like, sorry. And then they left. And the kid was like, I want to go home.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least it wasn't, like a opposite experience or something, run into some Children of the Corn kids or something in the middle of nowhere or something. But no, that's funny. Yeah, it's funny seeing kids' reactions to stuff like, and my kid has surprised me a couple times with that kind of thing too. It's just like, you never know how they're going to react. There's always that morbid curiosity that's in the back of their mind too. And yeah, you always going to have the one kid or, whatever that reaction is like, oh, that's so neat. And then, one's about ready to throw up over here in the corners. It was
so funny. I felt so bad because, like, man, those rabbits, like, it's so easy to accidentally, and it just was, just like a poor position to like be dispatching it. And it was like screaming. So I wanted to dispatch it because the poor kids are listening to this rabbit screaming.
Yeah.
And then just whoop. And then just, yeah, it was really funny though. I will never forget that because it was probably one of the funniest things that ever happened to me in the field. I tell everybody that story because I think it's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah. No, yeah, I can imagine. There's been some instances where I've just been like, oh God, please get me out of here. Like now. This needs to end now. And yeah, the situation can't be over fast enough kind of thing. So I get it. Yeah. And yeah, it's just, sometimes those situations are really, when at the time they're not funny.
Yeah, at the time I felt really bad, but then I'm in my car later and I've got blood all over my pants and I'm just like laughing. I'm like, that was the funniest thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah, and then it's always good when you can look back and laugh on stuff. But at the time, God, there's been so many times where I've just been like, oh, that could have been really bad.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it was like, it was fine. Like the poor kid, probably traumatized, will think about that forever. But the other one was like, wow, That was amazing. But yeah, that was definitely one of my favorites. I've had some really like awesome moments in the field. I worked with two other falconers, Al and Tamra. They helped me learn how to catch quail with my Harris hawk. So then doing that for the first time by myself was kind of amazing. Like watching my bird put himself in a good position, and then we got the quail, and then he like dove in and grabbed quail, and then that was really awesome. We had went out the day that they taught me how to do it. We were working. We didn't get a ton of quail slips, but then I was like, okay, I'm going to take what you did. And I went to another field and then found some quail and immediately caught one. So then I'm calling Al. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just caught a quail with my Harris hawk. And I was so excited. And then he was really birdie after that. Nice. And he was like, little snacks, loved them. And then we caught quite a few quail after that with him. So it was really exciting. So that's like a really fun one that I'll always remember.
Cool. Well, awesome. Well, I mean, like I said, I guess we can probably come close to wrapping this up then. I mean, is there anything that advice-wise that you'd like to leave current or future generations of falconers to? I always like getting a nice piece of advice from people that I have on and stuff, because it seems like everybody's always got something that they want to, caution people or, just advise people, food for thought type of thing. So,
yeah. So like what I would want to say to like falconers, especially like prospective falconers, is like look for birds that fit your lifestyle for sure. Like what you can reasonably do that you can give like the best opportunities for falconry for that bird. So like for me, it's things that I can fly at home easily, because that's where I'm at most of the time is around work. So that's what I would like tell people, like really look for what fits your lifestyle. Yeah, this is definitely a lifestyle, but we also have like another part of our life, like our work and our families and stuff like that. So looking for what works best for you where you're at in life, knowing that later on you can take that like passage peregrine and be able to drive and fly in ducks every day in the future. You don't have to do it right now. You can look for like what fits you right now and work with that.
Yeah, no, that's good. And yeah, I mean, it's there's certain species that don't work for super busy lifestyles for sure. And if they do, then it's harder. It just makes things harder.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, I mean, it is what it is. There's been concessions that I know I've had to make throughout my short years in falconry thus far too. And sometimes it sucks, but it's, in retrospect, it always ends up being better for you and the birds.
Yeah, definitely. I had an opportunity to take a sharp-shinned hawk, and I would love to fly one day, but there's no way, like, at this point in time I could take one and, like, actually, like, really fly it with, like, the birds that I already have and everything. So I was like, no, I can't. I had to pass it up. But yeah, it's because, like, I know maybe later in the future, like, I'll have time to actually do that and, like, give it, like, what it needs. But, like, right now, there's no way. I have birds at home that I'm already, like, trying to fly, so.
Yeah. Well, depending on how you're wanting to fly one, they oftentimes aren't a long-term time investment anyway.
Good to know.
Yeah, like I said, there's people that have flown them successfully and interviewed some over many seasons, but I mean, and it's a little bit easier, seems like, with them. It's like if you're primarily just field hawking and stuff, then it, a little bit more conducive to that. But if you're trying to do other stuff with them sometimes, and Sharpies, they're not the sharpest tools in the shed. They love to find creative ways to die. It seems
nice.
like a
We
lot
love
of times.
that.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. Like I said, most falconers that have flown them will probably tell you something similar. But anyway, yeah, just not to go down that whole path either. But I mean, and I like them. I mean, I don't think I'll probably ever fly another one. I mean, I've flown one or two, but I mean, like I said, they're fun birds. And they're nice birds too. They're pretty cool, but like I said, it is what it is. I don't know. It's not worth the time for me anymore, at least not in this juncture of my life. But anyway, not to go down that path once again. But anyway, we can go ahead and come close to wrapping this up here, I guess. Is there anything else that you want to add from the career side of things, or anything, or any other last I don't know, thought or anything that you want to add to this before we call this good? Or
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think I got everything.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, the zoology aspect of things, I mean, I always enjoy going to zoos and different aspects of like appreciating, the conservation side of things from that. I think there's a lot of people that don't understand just how much they, those programs contribute to the conservation side of things,
For sure. There's a lot of people who don't like zoos.
For sure.
And that's totally fair. I understand that perspective. But for me, like the other side that I'm seeing, like the conservation, my prairie chickens, like there would not be Atwater's prairie chickens if it wasn't for us like doing the work to get them back, in their habitat. So I see that, but not everybody does, because, like our prairie chickens are not on exhibit. Like you could not come to my zoo and see the prairie chickens, because we have them behind the scenes. And then we do the same with horned lizards, just not in my department. So I get to see that really awesome, like conservation side. And I really try to like tell people about that so that they can know. And then also just like, even like the more guest side, like, so we do like a penguin encounter at my zoo. So people get to come, they purchase a penguin encounter, we take them in the exhibit, they get to meet our penguins, and we feed our penguins and talk about them. That's awesome. It sounds like something that people who don't like zoos would be like, oh, how would you do that? But then the money that we get for that, we give to like SAFE and like SANCOB, which are like different conservation programs that like help African penguins. So then I see that side, but other people don't always. We try to mention it, but that's something that not everyone sees. So I get to see that really awesome side of like zoos, the conservation aspect, the the giving to like different programs and stuff, and then all the work we do to like maintain species. And I really love it. I also just really love letting people like connect with wildlife, especially like our ambassador birds, because they get to be such an awesome role for their like wild counterparts. So we can give such a powerful message, because if you meet like a red-tailed hawk and you put a name to that red-tailed hawk and you hear all about it, and then you see one later, you're less likely to think about, oh, that's going to go kill my cat or my dog or whatever, my chickens. Instead, you're like, oh, I met one of those. Its name was like, mine is Artemis. So, I met Artemis, and I got to like see them, feed them. I got to do all this stuff. And then, they told me not to use poison because that's really bad for them, because they can't eat mice with poison, and like they'll die. And then they think about that. So I think it's such a great tool that conservation has, because education is so important, and it is a way for us to deliver it in a really fun way that people are going to remember.
Yeah. Yeah, and people are pretty impressionable in that way. Even people that are very, anti, against certain types of animals or whatever, because of just, well, as we all know, are just absolutely just kind of more or less false.
Yeah, absolutely.
Assumptions of a lot of these animals and stuff. Anyway, like there's been people that I've known of that have taken people out before that would just love to shoot red tails and stuff, for example. And once upon a time there used to be bounties on them, and people used to actually get paid to shoot red tails because of this misconception of what they do, what they are. But then like, one person goes out that does that with the falconer, they normally would shoot these birds, and they go out with the falconer, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm never shooting one of these birds ever again, that kind of thing, so I appreciate, what zoos do. And, I appreciate just the overall conservation effort that a lot of these organizations contribute to and stuff. So, like I said, hopefully, I guess things like this will continue to grow. And, like I said, it's just amazing still the amount of misconceptions that are out there with a lot of these animals, unfortunately.
It really is. It's awesome that like we as falconers can take out people and like help them like learn, especially like this side, because hunting is so exciting. So it's really cool that we can take people out to like learn. And that's, like why I love my job. I feel like it's just a larger platform to do the exact same thing.
Sure. Well, cool. Well, it's been nice talking to you, and nice getting a chance to know you a little bit here. And I think we can probably go ahead and wrap this up. And I don't know, what do you got going on the rest of the day?
I'm going to travel home because the weather is supposed to get really gross in East Texas. We have like a winter storm warning, and I'm hoping to beat the ice, because I would rather die than drive on the ice.
Yeah. Well, and everybody makes a big deal out of snow, but I always just laugh at that. It's like,
it's the ice.
It's not snow you got to worry about. It's ice.
And Texas is like, what?
Yeah.
How do we do this?
Yeah.
How do we exist?
Right.
We don't even have a snowplow. We're just going to use a tractor and push the ice off the road. That's what they do in East Texas. They just get a little tractor and push it off. So I'm going to try to beat that.
Yeah. I don't blame you. I'm just kind of hoping that my flights don't get messed up or delayed later myself. So.
Oh, yeah. Are you flying out of?
Dallas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
Sometimes they're just like, oh, a little snow or a little ice. No.
Yeah.
No planes.
Yeah.
0 planes.
Yeah. So I'm kind of waiting for it, but it is what it is. We'll see what happens.
Hopefully you can make it home and you don't get stuck.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is. So anyway, all right. Well, like I said, I'll let you go ahead and get wrapped up here and get on the road. And like I said, it's been great meeting you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be able to do this. This is really cool.
Cool.
A fun little thing to do. So
yeah.
awesome.
Well, I'm glad you had fun.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. Well, we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, for sure.